exciting video where you once again join me in the wild landscape of Scotland. And today I've parked the car at the side of this little picturesque main road here. And today I'm actually on the road between Edzell and Fettercairn, and it's just a random, I was out on like a random drive, so this is just like a random little roadside location. It looks like there's a wee abandoned like farm croft or an abandoned house over in this field here. So I'm gonna head on over in this gate and see what we can see. Sometimes with these adventures I go places and like I can't get into them, or it could be right next to like a current farmhouse or something, so I always come with like the greatest respect to like landowners, estate owners on these adventures. I just love documenting history which is like almost gone and forgotten, and this would have probably been a little farm settlement or a croft at one time. So let's get into it, let's get into the action folks and see what we can find, see what layers of history we can uncover on this adventure. Once again for this one I've tucked the trousers into the socks, so if there's any ticks around and all this like long grass and stuff, they shouldn't be able to crawl up my trousers for sure. Wow, the landscape's just breathtaking, and now there's just colour and stuff appearing on all the trees, so it just makes everything look even more incredible for these adventures. Here we go folks, we're now infiltrating the perimeter here to try and document a piece of history that we've never seen on the channel before. And I love exploring places like this and seeing things that I've never seen. And it's so special that there's little houses or little crofts and stuff just hidden in this magical landscape. And often it's such an adventure to come and document them and to see them. Like here it is over here at the far side of this field. It looks like it's been freshly sown. So I'm going to stick to the perimeter here, because I didn't really want to be like damaging any crops or doing any harm. I can see vehicle tracks have freshly driven up that lane there, so it's probably been like gamekeepers or whatever. So as you can see from the landscape folks, everything's starting to grow. The grass is getting so much more green and luscious. It makes adventures like this harder because everything's so overgrown. It's an absolute mission to try and climb through it. Here we go folks, check it out. This is the edge of the perimeter from the old farm here, and the old farmhouse. It looks like somebody's recently walked up through here. Wow, I'm going to battle through this crazy terrain. Look, there's those black flies that give you a hell of a bite. There's one chilling on that nettle, and look, there's a ladybird on the other nettle. The amount of wildlife and creatures within a place like this is just crazy. That's how I was a bit wary of ticks. Whoa, this is crazy folks, this scene that I'm in the middle of right now. Wow, look at the bluebells or whatever that is there as well. It's a crazy scene of nature right here. Wow, let's climb up into this. I'm blown away by the terrain often that I have to get through to get to these places folks, and I'm just doing a little tick check. Wow, this is so cool. What have we even got here folks? It looks like there's some real incredible stonework right here, some stone carving on these pillars. Wow folks, this is an absolute hidden gem that I didn't even know about like 15 minutes ago even. I didn't even know this was here. And now we're walking about in the middle of this incredible stone construction here, which looks like an old settlement or an old house which has been built upon, but it's absolutely massive. It's been like a bit of a mansion house I believe, or a stately home of some sort. Wow, I'm trying to get closer. The bushes is so thick. No way, look at this folks. Yes, we've made it into history. I've got a beastie in my ear there. Look at the remains of these pillars. Wow, you can see the years of decay and erosion. The stonework's just about snapping off it, falling down. Look how the building's made with the rough sandstone as well, and then the front is faced with that grey sandstone, which is a different type. Wow, check this out folks, I had no idea this was even here. after seeing it now, it must have been such a grand farmhouse, if it had been a farmhouse. Can you imagine this at the front door with these pillars? I can't even believe I'm once again standing inside a landscape like this. It's like mind-blowing, and once again I've been able to bring a crazy location like this to the audience. It's crazy to have like a global audience and share little corners of Scotland like this. Anyway, let's head on round through. You can tell how long it's been abandoned from the size of these trees, which are thicker than even the stone pillars nowadays. Wow folks, what a crazy spot this is. Look at the way the ivy is like taking over. This is a proper like secret garden, secret bit of history, just hidden in nature. And I love the way these pillars are built around here, like separate to the wall. And then these big stone slabs which are curved, matching the shape of the building. Wow, this is so interesting to see. Look, there's a big bumblebee. It's going around probably looking for a nest, or maybe it is nesting and it's fleeing around looking for some pollen. Yeah, let's have a look in this room, since I'm in line here with what must have been a door at this side. Or maybe a massive window. Yeah, I believe the window was that next one. This must have been the door. And look, you can still see remains of the hinges and the door frame here. And it still has original green paint left on it. I believe these pillars have been full circles originally, but the back of this one's split off right through. And that was likely because it's made here from grey sandstone that probably had a natural fissure through it like that, causing the straight, sharp split. And it's the same with this one, it's split pretty badly. And you can just imagine how overnight, if a tree or something fell on a place like this, the history would just be gone, forgotten overnight and damaged, ruined. Wow, there's some crazy external wall features here, and there's even like a hole there. Looks like it's going down an underground section. Oh my goodness folks, look at this. What? This is what I mean about my adventures. I just can't script it. The spontaneous adventures are always the most incredible ones. Now I need to go under here and have a look. Luckily I've got the phone torch, but I had no idea what I was expecting, so I didn't even bring like my proper torch. And now I'm starting to wish I had. Look at this folks, oh my goodness. Wow. So does that signify that this is actually the site of an ancient castle? Because we've seen castle constructions very similar to this recently on the channel. Whoa! Look how big this is under here, folks. Wow. I'm wishing now that I had brought my brighter torch. This is absolutely incredible. We are underneath it. I thought it was just like a little button ben or a farm ruin that we were away to explore. And now we are standing within the heart of this old piece of history. Check it out, it's got the old hinges there, the old wooden door frames, and then the square nails. And it's got the arched construction on the roofs, similar to what we saw recently on the castles. I love the way the stones and stuff's all built, and you can see how it's been whitewashed at a certain time with some white paint. This was probably like a coal cellar or something related to the big house which was on this site. And look, it's like it's had a wee opening there, or a little storage area potentially. Wow folks, this is so cool. I love it when I find things that I've never seen before, and sometimes places like this has just got so many like levels to it. The more you explore, the more you see. Even when I was looking at those front pillars, I was never expecting that I was going to see a crazy underground section here. And look, it's had a chimney leading the way up at a certain funny angle, reinforced from a metal bar. And look, the fire hearth is still in position there, which is just so cool to see. We're just using the phone torch for this one, folks, but at least we can see this details that I'm showing you here, like this old hearthstone, and even the way that the fire is, the shape of these walls, it's just fascinating to see. Think when these old wooden pieces were put in, and I'm guessing that must have been where they used to throw the coal down, like a coal chute, to fill up this area. Maybe there had been butlers or whatever down here sorting all that sort of stuff out for the main house. And that's maybe how they had a fireplace down here as well. Let's head on through to the next section, folks. It's pretty dark in this area, but like I say, it's unexpected to find such a massive underground system here. It's just been so special. Look at the way these stairs as well, they go up like this, and then they curve round like a spiral staircase. And the doors have been really wide down here, and that's maybe so they could push like barrows of like coal and maybe even sticks and things like that around. And then there's this whole other room at this end. It's also got one of these fancy looking chute kind of things, but this one has got no fireplace in it, and also doesn't have that square cut out bit. Whoa, look at that, the shape of the stones, the way the light and vegetation shines down in here. And look, there's a lintel stone way up there with a gap below it, and I believe it looks like the floor height or the bottom of the window height has been at that lintel, so the coal or whatever must have been put underneath that. Not unless that was just a window. Here, I think that's what this is, folks. This opening here likely wasn't for throwing in the coal, because they wouldn't need two entrances like that. This would have been how the windows were for this lower section, to get the light in, and that'll be the reason that they've whitewashed it, so the light is obviously a lot more strong and prominent. And then on the roof, look at those big hook parts. Maybe lanterns and lights were hung on there, because castles or old buildings like this date back to times long before electricity. They would have had crude forms of light in an area like this originally. Because as you can see from this video, it's quite dark if you don't have like adequate lighting. It's just mad to think when all this like stones were laid and the history which is within a building like this. I just can't even believe it. Like, it's been so cool that I was able to have the camera on as we came around here and documented this, because like I just had no idea what I was about to see. I thought it was going to be similar to like the last video where it was a small farm croft maybe with a little bit of history to tell, and yet we've come and found this. Wow, look, this is so interesting. Look at the old white bricks which has been used here. It almost looks like this has been built at a later time here, this. That's right, there's been an entrance in here. You can see the original thing, and these stones in this particular area has been built, because that's the original stones there. And it is super dangerous. You can see how it's all falling away, gradually disappearing, turning back to nature and time. And look at this, the outside back walls. Wow, so I'm not sure what this has been, but I would guess there must have been a passageway or something going down under that side. And then this must have been one of the original entrances which took you out wherever this leads up here. Wow, folks, I'm blown away by this location. It's the sort of place, the longer you look at things, the more history you see. And look at this here, this is cool. Look, it's so eroded here. Maybe there's been a fire at the back of this wall. But look how thin the sandstone's become. It's got a round hole in it. It must be a fire, because look, they've repaired it here at a time. This piece of the wall must have been getting super weak. But look at that there, another interesting detail. Bit of the old lath and plaster still on the wall. And that's cool to see, because think of the weather that that's had to stand up to. It's just been on the wall that whole time, since people were walking about in these rooms, probably speaking about goings on in the local estate or things like that. No way. right, just look at it from this angle. It's just crazy how it's here in this piece of land, and I had never even heard about it or been told about it. But yet here I am, just driving up the road, and I just noticed what looked like a small button bin, and then when I come out, it's this, an abandoned mansion with underground cellars and just incredible brickwork and stonework, probably dating back to ancient times. See, there's been a massive fire here which has been bricked up as well, and that shows a castle or a building like this was always developed and changed as the years went on and progressed. It could even be possible that somebody maybe had just like lived in small parts of this eventually, and the main part of the house or castle was just left ruined. And then as the years progressed, even those people would have moved away and abandoned the small sections. I can see there's even older buildings there, like an old farm croft, so we'll have to just have a proper walk around here. The old wooden lintels and stuff. I can see how these doors have been changed with the rough stone. Yeah, this has been such an interesting sight. The reason I believe it's started off as like an older house is the way that the underground section's constructed, with like the stone arches and things like that. And I can see how this chimney has fallen down with a clatter at a certain time. That's the thing, sometimes these places, like I've said already in the video, overnight they can change and get totally ruined, and videos like this just keep the history alive. You can see how things were at a certain time, or how walls were before they fell down fully. And the amount of like growth and bushes and things here, it's just been years and years of abandonment. History almost lost. Wow, I'm going to push on around. I think I'll walk around the full perimeter of this building first before I head on. Yeah, look, this bit here has been added on at a different time or changed, because you can see the brickwork line there. So at the back of this section there's these 3 windows, and it is unusual, the different layout and the different sections of this place. It's quite interesting to see it and to try and imagine how it originally looked. Yeah, kind of interesting thing, the back part here is maybe older because it's built with that rough red stone, and then the other sections look totally different. Like this section at the front's the grey sandstone. Wow, it would have been crazy if I had come around this side first and looked in, because that's the massive void into the underground. No way, look at this. This is so cool, look how thick this ivy trunk is here. Wow. This place here is a true postcard of abandoned history. And I'm just blown away, folks. I say it each time like I'm on adventures or each week, but I always think like, how can I top that? There can't be any more abandoned history. And then, boom, a place like this is just hidden within the forest, ready to be explored and documented. And it's such an adventure. I just love seeing what's there and imagining the folk that like put that there. Think of the people maybe sitting looking out this bay window here. And right enough, the way that was designed with the front stones, there would have been a small gap down there for the light to get into the underground section. And you have to imagine the ground would have been lower here originally. It's probably risen up like half a foot, maybe even more in places, like 1 or 1.5 feet of earth around it that wasn't there before. But the detail of the stonework is the most impressive thing. It sets it apart from some of the other buildings that I explore on the channel. Wow, this has just been so cool. Look at this though, folks, this is another reason it's special to record it. Look how far that front wall is like leaning out away from the inner structure. Wow, look, that tree down there is just pushing it apart. Unfortunately, you can see there, look, there's been gutters or drains coming down here, and look, they've been going into that pipe. See, that would make me think it had been the 1800s. This must have been thriving in the 1800s, this place. Look at that, it's the ivy pushing the stones apart. That's why this whole wall here is actually leaning out so far. Look at all these trees that's growing right in front of the structure. It's such a shame things like this don't get protected and saved before it's too late. Because as far as it is now, it's just so far gone. Here, I don't think I've even been in this room. Wow, look at this sitting room here, folks. Bearing in mind there's like that big opening below our feet right here. So I'm not going too close to the edge there of where it drops off. Oh, look at that on the windowsill. Old piece of pottery. I need to go back around and have a look at that once we've seen this room. Yeah, that's strange because look, there's some of those white shiny bricks down here, like what we saw on that wall. The wall that looked like it had been blocked up. It's almost like there had been another entrance going down behind that other wall, the far side. Kind of what I love about this place, which you don't see often, even though there's no roof and the rain's landing on it. Look, the lath is still on the wall there where the plaster would have gone on. Wow. The wooden lath is just creating an excellent growing platform for the ivy. And look at this, the way that there's been a double fire here, and then look, the secondary fire from down below that we saw downstairs, it goes way up the side. Most likely, originally, you wouldn't have seen that from this room, but so much stone is probably like chipped off from the heat of the fire. That's how we saw the thin back wall. Look at all the brackets that must have held on the mantelpiece. The stones are weakened from the extreme heat of the fire, probably on the cold Scottish nights. Houses like this would have been managing the estate, all their land and all their farmland and workers, forestry, and there was always so much done back in the day, and it was often managed from these mansions, which were like the control centre for the old estates. It's so special just to see what's left of them now. After years of them being abandoned, there's no two of them the same, but often when I explore so many places I see similarities of things that they must have done back in those days. It's just matter of course. Anyway, before I go through here, I think that takes us back to the first room that we came into. I still need to look at the far away room, but I'm really interested to look at this bit of pottery which is on the windowsill. Check this out, folks. Just think, this plate, look how fine it is. It's fine china. It's so light and delicate. I just think they might have been eating their scones off of that in this very house, looking out over this window. Probably certain times of year, like the winter, you would be able to see maybe stuff like this lying about in the grass and that around here. Whereas this time of year now, it's getting so overgrown. But there is parts like this which must have fallen off the house over the years, or maybe it's been some garden detail that's been here. But another interesting thing, look at this, there's a hell heap of slates like lying down here, and I think that must be the old slates which have come off the roof, or parts of the roof maybe in here. Wow, this is so special to explore. Right folks, let's check out some sections of this place that we've not seen yet. Wow, it's just mad, like raspberry bushes and stuff in this section. Yeah, look at this, there's been obviously another massive bay window at this side that's been wiped out. And then look at this, another fireplace which has been changed and developed from its original fire which was here back in the day. It's like it's had this fancy grey sandstone on the front, and that's what those little metal pins have been holding. And then within that, it's probably had a wooden mantelpiece as well, potentially. But then I think at a later time they've put in a small fire with that red stone. Check that out, how thin and degraded the sandstone is here. It's turning back to its original sand. The whole chimney breast there is just completely shot out from years of the fire burning. Just think what trinkets and items may have been stored within this cupboard originally. Maybe that china dish that we saw at one time sat here. This wall here looks super eroded and decayed compared to all the other ones. So maybe this was like part of an even older building, and then they kind of built on it and then tidied it up and made it incredibly grand. Whoa, look at this. Because this is more sheltered here, it actually looks like the plaster and stuff's still in here. Like, you can get an idea. Like, even the door hinge is still there. Wow. And look, it's had that render on the inside of it. It's not quite plaster, but it's not quite like laughing plaster, but it's just smeared over the surface of the brick to create a smooth finish. And then the wooden lintels and things is there as well. This is so interesting, folks. Anyway, I'm going to push on round the side of the building now and try and see what I can see at that other little ruin that's there. Because there's so many layers to a place like this. It's just so special. Look at the difference between the grey sandstone and the red sandstone here. These two bricks are the grey. And it's a clear difference. And that's how they used to use it for, obviously, the beauty of the stone and the colour was what they were wanting. Most houses and castles were potentially the red sandstone. So places like this changed it up and then had the grey frontage. And as you approach, it just looks so grand. And you can imagine with those fancy pillars at the front, it was just so beautiful in its day. Now I'm walking through this bluebell wonderland. Look, there's how the original downstairs window looked. That rectangle there will be the original size. And all that was doing is just directing light down the stair. And it's mad to think the house is so big, because all that's above, and then you have to consider all those rooms down below. It's like 3 massive rooms, and it was probably a good few stories high, I would think. And then look at this. This must have been the little farm building, maybe like a home farm. This was maybe the grandest farmhouse in the land right here. This is so special though. Thinking about this here, it's probably been on the go since way back 1600s, and then built upon and added to over the years as the years progressed. And then it looks to me like this place has probably been abandoned for about as long as the little mansion house there. Wow, this is so cool, folks. I think there's been a mill here. Yeah, this here's been a mill shed, because I can see the shaft holes in the wall at the far side and also the bolt holes. So for sure there's been either a water wheel or some mechanism to turn a water wheel at the far side of this wall. And then look, this is where they've had their like loft hatch so they could throw all the straw and barley in with the grain on it, and then they would feed it down in. You see the holes up here where the mill equipment would have come through. Wow, folks, look at it there. There's actual bolt holes and stuff still in the stone. Check that out, the bolts are still there. And look at the way this stone's shaped, carved. Yeah, so that is interesting. Like, this is a massive lintel stone that I'm standing on here. I'm not sure which shed roof that's come from, but it must have been this somewhere around here. I can see above there there's cast brackets as well. This is an interesting little site because it looks like the water wheel, if anything, has been, or whatever it's been. I'm trying to think, it might not have been a water wheel. Often they had a mechanical drive system powered from like a cow or a horse walking around. So I'll just have a proper look here, but I'm not seeing any evidence there of the mill. So I'm just a bit dumbfounded right there, folks. And there's no sign of a lathe coming down, so they must have had something there where the animals could walk around and turn turn the mill to grind up the grain, or to turn the mill which separated the grain from the barley. Yeah, this is so cool, folks. I can see the old troughs and stuff leading along, and some remains of the old slates on the roof. But look how this building here is built with the rough pebbles and stones from the land, whereas you saw with the castle or mansion house there, it's built with proper stone, like red and grey sandstone. And that was the difference between like the common man's building and then the rich people's buildings. These common buildings were built for an industrial purpose of like managing the land and the farming, whereas those other houses were built to be like grand and beautiful. And look at the old wooden sections in here, which would have been to separate the animals. Maybe this was the horse stable or whatever back in the day. Yeah, I'm being super careful because it's just loads of slates in here. The way the walls and the roof's all falling in. But I was just wanting to document that. The way the wood's all built there on those partitions. And then they've got a little feeding trough at the front. So cool. With places like this, often this is just where everything landed. And one day there was a storm and history just almost got deleted. But credit to the animal stalls there, they're in super good condition. Considering that they've had a roof with loads of slates landing on them. Look at this as well, the front wall is starting to leave the property. So it just shows videos like this will save the history, and you can see how it was. So if this wall does fully fall down, you get an essence of what was here at this time. And it's also got the white internal render, which all houses and buildings used to have at a certain time. I've seen that from the top of the glens down to sea level. As the years progressed though, they went away from using that render and they started using like wooden inlay more commonly. Oh wait, look at this. This must be all the wee sheds where they would have been feeding the animals, or the animals could have been in here over the winter. And then maybe they just opened this back door and they had a free roam out onto the field area. Easily managed. But farming now is so much bigger and more industrial. Little places like this just went out of date and became obsolete. Look at that, there's an exit there for something. There's maybe even been an old engine or whatever in there, or a stove. Oh, it'll just be ventilation because I can see it there as well. Look at this detail here though, folks. Look at the red square here. That would have been from the interesting like 1800s farm that would have been here. From the original farm. You can see how it was developed and changed as the years progressed. Till eventually it was probably abandoned. I would say it looks like it's been abandoned since like the early 1900s. Look, there's been a roller door on here. Only one part of it's left. Still rolls. Just think about the rumble of that when the boy was out feeding his cows or his sheep on the cold winter's morning. Walking out here, all conditions with the lantern, making sure his beasts and livestock were happy. Oh, this is a cool shed here. Check this out, folks. Look, it's got the full cement interior. This is where I was seeing the pipes going out of the wall. Looks like it's maybe been made for pigs or whatever. And then there's a bit there for tying their holster next to the wall. Wow, this place has just had everything, folks. This is what I love on an adventure. It's just everything that encapsulates like an estate, but it's all in one place. We've got the mansion and the story of maybe the land it was managing, and then the farm. Because most estates and mansions were managing at least one or sometimes many farms. And this gives you an indication of what a farm may have even looked like originally when this mansion was constructed. And then this has been like their farm yard here. See, it's all been built here with stone. I think it's just been an open kind of yard. Probably for the cows, maybe even getting outside. And then they would have been able to eat out of this trough, which is now just a sanctuary for wildlife. Wow, what a special adventure this has been, folks. It was just out of the blue, spontaneous adventure, and that is literally when you find the best things and see the coolest things. From the road, I thought it was just going to be a little building that looked a bit like this. An old farm building, and once I got closer, it was just so cool. All the things I've found and all the things I've seen. And look, here's the last remains of what this roof may have looked like. You can see it's had the slate roof on it, but originally it most likely had the stone slab roof. And as the years progressed, it would have changed and been developed and had this roof put on. Here's another thing, look at this old white sink. It probably came out of one of these houses, but like I've said on, I think it was last week's abandoned farm video, you see these all over the place in Scotland, getting used as troughs, out in fields or even at farm yards and places like this. But those sinks are rare and hard to get nowadays for people doing up houses and stuff. They're quite a good item to have. The amount I see just lying about in the wilderness, it's crazy. Just think somebody was probably washing their hands or whatever in that sink at one time. Here it is here now. Yeah, this is the window that I looked out of, and I'm just noticing on the outside it's had like shutters or whatever connected in. You can see the lead which has been within the stone, maybe to hold the latch or whatever's been in there. And even here there's more slates which have fallen off the roof. Wow folks, that was so interesting to see. I'm just thinking my best route to get back out of here. I think I'll just head on round here. It would be cool to go back down through that underground section one more time before we leave. Because it's like I've always said, often when you go down the second time, that's when you notice all the coolest things. And I'm not sure, like I think those windows look original there along the back of the building. Sometimes at the rear of a building or the lower levels was where you had like the servants or the maids, the butlers, and their windows weren't as fancy and the views were never as good. But also the window designs and stuff weren't as fancy either, because the back of the house was hardly seen. Whereas the front of the house would be seen from everybody commuting and going on horseback between Finhaven and Edzell. And this is actually an area which Queen Victoria travelled through back in the days of her travels. And that's how at the village of Fettercairn there's actually an arch there, the stone arch. And I believe that was dedicated to Queen Victoria when she came through. It was built for her. And I just wonder what this mansion house looked like back at that time, when Queen Victoria was riding past in her fancy horse and cart, in her fancy carriage. Like, if she looked up this way, what would she have seen? There's been a grand window or whatever there. So I believe that wall, I can't understand why that wall would be there. It must have stopped at that point. So the rear window or whatever was accessible. Yes, folks. Every now and again I've just been having a look to see if there's any ticks crawling about. And so far, so good, to be honest. I'm not seeing anything at all, which is just ace. Because this wet, grassy environment is normally the worst. Yeah, see this area here that I'm looking at, I don't think this has ever been a proper entrance down. It's more like, see what I'm thinking folks, that there, the entrance to the right which comes out, it's gone that way, straight ahead of where I'm standing originally. And this side has looked like that, I believe, originally. Let's head on down and see what I see here. Yeah, it's strange why that is bricked up like this at a different time. Wonder if I can get my torch here and see anything. Yeah, it's too hard to see because the bricks is so perfectly built in there. Look at that, there's a pipe. Well, I put my hand in a spider web there. There's a pipe there though at the back of that hole, and that shows where they were draining the water away to from the gutters. Those pipes were going like deep into the ground. Wow, here we are, back underneath history. Yeah, that is a mystery there, how I believe that this door's gone through and then gone to the right, from what I'm seeing. And you can clearly see that wall's built at a different time. So that is a strange detail, folks. And also, there's no window or like hatch on the back wall here. It's just the plain wall. And I'm thinking there's definitely something behind here, maybe another like room or some kind of crazy little underground section. Because if you come to this end, this is where I was seeing the window kind of bitty, and that would imply there was likely a difference obviously between that side and this side. But it's like that window's been bricked up at the same time. That is strange. You can see this area's even had the inlay there. It's been properly finished and it's been grand in its day. And even this fire here has had a fancy like mantelpiece on it. And that piece of wood must have been one of the last remaining parts of that mantelpiece, because you can see it's got the square nails in it. Yeah, that is an interesting question though about this back section. And I do believe from exploring a lot of places over the years, again, that's the telltale sign. There's maybe been a room or something, and when they developed and changed the castle, it was no longer needed. Because that often happened as well. Maybe the foundations were getting weakened around the back, and then the back filled that area. But it looks like to me, after pondering the history and throwing out theories like I do on the channel, I believe this door has gone through. And I actually believe it's gone both ways, and there's been rooms, underground rooms at each side there. And then I think most recently they had blocked this side up and then still used that side. And then eventually they had stopped using the whole thing. That's often what you have to do when you're exploring somewhere. You just have to visualise the history and think about it. On this wall, there's definitely no evidence here of a window or another way of accessing that room. So check that out, folks, for an abandoned scene of Scottish history once again on the channel. And I'm blown away that I can keep finding this sort of stuff, sharing it with the world. And it's just such a peaceful spot down here. There's just not a sound apart from nature and the animals. But often there must be some rumble from the sound of the building falling down now and again. Like, I think these stones are shaped for the stair going round the corner, but I can hardly tell because of the amount of debris that's on them. You can just see the edge of the fine finished stone. Probably the earth and stuff's protecting the stones from getting too worn. But I think this piece of wood remains here from what must have been maybe like an ancient banister or whatever, which was along the side of this. But another interesting detail, the top of this has got cutouts. So there must have been some sort of door frame or whatever in it at one time. And another thing, look at that, there's a square cut out there. Look at that stone, wow, see how fine it's finished, the way it's shaped. Don't know how well that comes out on the camera, folks, but like the level of detail on the stones was so perfect back in the day. And when you see the ones outside, you can hardly tell from the amount of weathering on them and stuff. It's cool to see stuff like that down here, out of the weather and fully protected. Anyway, I'm going to head up now out of this incredible underground wilderness. I just love the angle of that, seeing the way nature just always tries to come back, take back over. Anyway, yeah, let's head on up out here, folks. It's quite a slippy, steep slope right here. Look at the way this tree is just above my head here. And then the way these stones are arched. I can actually see there's metal hooks there, and I believe that must have been ancient lanterns that were hung up. And you can just imagine walking in here when all those lanterns were lit up and things like that. And here's a detail as well, folks. We know about the stone arch. I'm totally slipping as I say this. The stone arch is there as the strength, the strong roof. But look, around this area of the room above, it's had this beautiful flat stone floor laid on top of it. And you can see the evidence of it here. It's like perfect, smooth, flat stone, which must still be under the ground there. The years that's passed, it's just insane to see. And this is not the easiest to climb, so I would be super careful if anybody comes here. Always just explore within your means. Yeah, this is just so special. Whoa, I've got a beastie on my sock, but it's no actually a tick, I don't think. It's just some little fly thing. Yeah, there's loads of them. Holy smokes. That is not ticks though, but I don't know what they are. Right folks, I'm getting out of here before nature gets the better of me as well. We've been so blessed with what we've seen today. Oh, listen. There must be a nest up there, and they must be getting fed. The little birds in the nest are squeaking away, tweeting away. Right then folks, let's blast out of here. This has been so cool. Once again, documenting history that we didn't even know existed half an hour before we got here. And I'll head out through this forest where it's least like overgrown at this spot. I'm not sure if like these lumps of cement had been anything related to the castle garden or whatever. It's one of these places though, you can hardly see it even when you're this close. And the way that all these trees are starting to come out now, it's just changing the landscape drastically. Within the space of like this last week, everything's changed. Everything's so overgrown and hard to explore. Anyway, I'm going to head right down this track, back to the main road. When I came up the other side of this field and round, but I didn't even know this track was here because I didn't realise this site was so large. What a special adventure it's been though folks, and I'm so glad that I came and tried to see what was here. When I noticed it, I was just thinking, oh, there's nowhere to park. And then as I went a little bit further, there was a parking space right at the side of the road, so I just pulled in. It made this adventure possible. And there was so many details there that I loved. Starting off with the fancy, beautiful pillars at the front. The way they were carved so smoothly from the grey sandstone. It was just the finest of masonry work, the finest of carving. And then to get the surprise of having the underground section, which was built the same as like an ancient castle, with the fancy stone arches. The interesting questions that it raised with that bit being bricked off at the back, and the fact there had been a wee entrance going through like a window or whatever at one time, it had also been bricked up. And then getting to see the farm and stuff as well related to that site. Just thinking about the years that's passed, it's sat there, and then how many years it must have been abandoned. It's just breathtaking that I could come and share what I've seen today with the world. And look, we've walked a small distance from it and you can't even tell it's there. It just looks like a gathering of trees. But that's been one of my favourite explores for this week. But also just like overall this year, because that house there had so many little surprises that I just love to find. Even the little bit of china, the plate, like for sure that's come out of that house. Just think they were maybe sitting eating a biscuit or a cake off of that. It's just mad to think that relation of the history to the house. So because it was a spontaneous adventure, I didn't have any exact details of the history or the name of the house. I'll have to research it after I've been, but I didn't have a good signal here to look it up. But for sure, if there's anything cool or interesting about it, I'll come back and update the history in a future video. Or I'll even mention it in a future video. But it's just so cool to keep finding stuff like that, hidden and abandoned in the wild landscape of Scotland. It's almost a wild forest just a small corner. Maybe some of those big trees around that were planted as little saplings back when the house was first constructed, or when the house was developed and changed. Probably the area around it was beautifully landscaped with garden, maybe even some crops and stuff for the house kitchen. Sometimes they would grow their own vegetables and things like that, whatever was needed. Now I need to safely navigate down the side here. This is a popular road for like motorcyclists, and it's quite a busy road on the weekend normally. Right then folks, that's me just about back at my car. It's been a fun adventure, but I'm going to end it here. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with the next one, wherever I end up going.